I was listening to somebody talking on the radio recently about what it's like to have schizophrenia. This person had 7 distinct voices talking in her head. She heard these voices vividly, loudly and clearly. And they were usually talking about her or talking to her in the most derogatory and undermining fashion. And they weren't just talking to her, they were talking amongst themselves about her, putting her down, undermining her. And they were loud. It sounds like a terrible situation to be in, a terrible condition to be afflicted by. But it struck me that in one way she's fortunate, in that she actually heard these voices loud and clear. Because I think most of us are in this condition, except we don't hear the voices. But they're going on. They're going on quietly, insidiously, steering our mind, working our mind against us. And this chapter 50, the last part of chapter 50 in the Yoga Vasishta, is about the mind. The mind as an enemy. It's a peculiar state of affairs, isn't it? Why the mind should be our enemy. There's no doubt about it in this chapter. There's several similes applied to the mind and how we should deal with it. But it's something which is a bit of a taboo in at least modern Western culture, probably in most cultures actually. What does the phrase mental health conjure up? It actually conjures up mental sickness, mental illness. The British government is very concerned about the physical health of its citizens. We're being encouraged to eat good food. It's got this scheme that we should eat at least 5 portions of fresh fruit and vegetables each day, that we should take regular exercise. So basically diet and physical exercise. We're being encouraged to do this for the sake of the health of our body. These sorts of schemes have been dreamt up by doctors, I suppose, scientists. But what do they say about our mental health? What should we do to keep our mind healthy? Does the government or the medical profession have anything to say about that? Well, do we want the government to be saying anything about that? Government and minds don't go too well together. We get ideas about mind control and all the rest of it, all that paranoid stuff, which might be for real, who knows. On a personal level then, what can we do about our mental health? Apparently there's a huge number of people, millions of people, dealing with their mental health by taking antidepressant drugs. This seems to be, as far as the orthodox establishment are concerned, this seems to be all it can offer in terms of mental health. Take some drugs. I think the social equivalent would be if the government said, take slimming pills. They wouldn't dare do such a thing. But it seems okay about having huge swathes of the population on antidepressant drugs or other kinds of drugs. But let's get back to the matter in hand about what we can do. It seems strange that the mind has become our enemy. And why should this be? And I've thought back in my own case to an early memory, and it was this exaltation almost that the mind was my own territory. Nobody else knew what was going on in it. It was quite exhilarating. There was a sense of freedom. But that sense of freedom is a bit like selling your soul to the devil, because you give free rein to your mind because, yeah, I can think what I want. I can imagine what I want. The cat is out of the bag then. The horse has bolted, or whatever simile or metaphor you want to use there. And I think it started, at least in my own case, from that. There's this idea that somehow your mind is your sovereign territory, no matter how much it works against your own self-interests. And we don't actually want anybody else telling us what to do with our mind, do we? We don't want to be brainwashed. This is a fair point. I'm not going to argue in favour of brainwashing. I'm just trying to understand the basic attitudes that we have to our own mental health. We would rather suffer in the name of our mental freedom, which isn't freedom at all. And so the idea of any kind of mental discipline is almost like seen as an attack on our civil liberties. So I don't know if that rings a bell with anybody. But whether we're engaged in any kind of spiritual practice or not, it seems to me we should be spending at least as much time on our mental health as we do on our physical health. The matter in hand then becomes, well, what can we do about our mental health? It seems to be left in the hands of what we might call, or what the orthodox professions might call, fringe therapists. Or you could go to psychotherapy. That seems to be approved of by the establishment, if you like. This chapter, I think, is touching on this. I said before that mental health or mental development doesn't have anything to do with spirituality. But if you're following some kind of spiritual insight, then you'll see the need to bring harmony into your life. You'll see inharmonious elements in your mind, and these should be tackled by whatever means possible, whatever means work. The first one that's mentioned is inquiry. Inquiry, looking into the situation. I think it really means self-enquiry here, and this means looking into the nature of yourself, looking into the nature of what is actually going on. This is the first thing. And it's actually a very difficult thing to do sometimes, especially if you're caught up in stress, mental pain, physical or emotional pain. So sometimes self-enquiry is just not possible. So you need to try other strategies. And some of these strategies are mentioned here, which I'll go on and talk about in the next video.